Okay, so welcome to our Alumni Admissions Conversations panel, Why Where You Get Your Degree Matters. I think this is our third year doing this together, so we're really excited to be back presenting this panel to you. So just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Please mute your microphone. You can ask questions in the chat. I will get to them. You can also raise your hand if you have a question, and I will look for that and we can answer your question as well. If you're disconnected, please feel free to rejoin. I just want to do a couple of quick things. I want to show you one or two quick videos and go over a couple of items, and then we're going to jump right into our panel. And for those of you maybe not familiar with our building, just a quick tour. Is that a 1-minute tour? Hold on, let's see if it pops up. Yep. A quick walk down memory lane for our alumni panelists. And this is also one of our, I guess, our recent favorite drone photos. About a year ago, the university took some really amazing drone photos of our South Campus. So we always like to show them. The pharmacy building is up here in the upper right-hand corner. Again, it's a lovely photo of the campus. We use it for our Zoom backdrops and all kinds of great things. So always nice to show prospective and accepted students. So I just want to take a quick moment, and this is going to take all of 3 minutes maybe, and talk with you a little bit about our school, and then we're going to jump into our panel. If you didn't know, we are a well-ranked school. We're the #1 school of pharmacy and a top 15 school of pharmacy nationally among over 140 pharmacy schools. We are a leader both in pharmacy practice and clinical pharmacy practice and in pharmaceutical sciences. Our pharmaceutical sciences program is world-renowned with thought leaders among our faculty, our alumni. We have amazing students in both of our programs. And the School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences offers many great options. At the end, I'm going to talk about some of our degree programs when we're done with the panel. And I can answer any questions about our school community, living in the area, admissions, and any requirement questions. Just quickly, again, our school is not a new school. We're over 135 years old, and we continue to be a thought leader in our programs and our fields. I want to talk with you a little bit just about pharmacy practice and then pharmaceutical sciences in terms of what our degree programs look like. Here in pharmacy practice, we are working together with our clinical faculty and our pharmaceutical sciences faculty to really work with, prepare, train, and graduate some of the best trained pharmacists and pharmaceutical scientists in the country. In terms of our Pharm Sci program, Our graduates are widely recognized for being leaders in the field. They're in high demand for many different careers. We have two panelists today that are going to talk with you about their work, in particular in the pharmaceutical industry and in the field of pharmaceutical sciences. In terms of our pharmacy practice program, we talk about this often. We continue to be ranked among the top programs for being most affordable, which is important when you're thinking about planning for the next 4 years, 6 years, 8 years overall. Pharmacy education, like medical education, dental education, can be expensive, and we continue to work hard as an institution, as a system, together with our alumni to make the costs as affordable as possible. Finally, for both pharmacy practice and pharmaceutical sciences, when we sort of put everything all together, our PharmD grads are known for these hallmarks in terms of their stellar work ethic, amazing patient care skills, their preparedness, and their professionalism. And similarly, our PharmSci grads are really known for their, unparalleled research skills, superior work ethic, and our alumni are sort of here to show this and talk with you about their work. So we're going to meet our panelists. I'm going to hand it over to Becky at this point, and we will go through the slides and introduce our panelists.
Hi, everyone. I'm Becky Brierly, Assistant Dean here at the School of Pharmacy for Communications and Alumni Relations, and I'm so pleased to be here with you this evening to introduce our panelists. And we're very glad to have you here so we can talk a little bit about why or where getting your degree from matters and why UB is the best choice for an great educational experience and great educational opportunity. Begin with our panelists for this evening. Our first panelist is Dr. Raheel Bodhi-Yaboa. Dr. Rahal received her Doctor of Pharmacy degree from UB in 2016. And while she was a PharmD student, she was a member of our clinical research program and under the direction of Dr. Brian Suji. She published and was well represented for her presentations in infectious disease research on the topic of azithromycin, pharmacodynamics in COPD patients. After graduation, she joined CVS in Midland, Texas, where she led a store opening and then moved on to positions with various healthcare systems across the state, leading clinical medication therapy management services and patient education programs in opioid abuse. In 2021, she joined Continue Care Hospital, a long-term care pharmacy managed by Cardinal Health, as a clinical pharmacist, where she worked with interdisciplinary teams of healthcare providers. She is proud to say she was promoted to Director of Pharmacy Services after 6 months of a staff role. In 2022, she relocated to Central Dallas and took on a role as staff clinical pharmacist at the Methodist Midlothian Health System, providing inpatient clinical services to ER, ICU, med-surg, and labor and delivery patients. In 2023, she expanded her experience from retail and hospital into pharmacy benefit management and began a position with United Healthcare Group as a patient care clinical management pharmacist. She is also the owner and founder of Rofika Pharmacy, a consulting pharmacy solutions service, which provides career counseling, business and health counseling. And at the moment, the pharmacy is now branching into a brick and mortar retail, compounding, and clinical care pharmacy with a grand opening in the fall of this year. As a former international student, she is very aware of the challenges international students face in their education and career paths and is happy to assist with any questions or guidance in this area. Welcome, Dr. Rahal.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is Dr. Patrick Glassman. Dr. Glassman obtained both his BS in 2011 and his PhD in 2016 from the UB Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences. While at UB, he began a productive scientific career under the direction of Dr. Joseph Balthazar, endowed chair and professor. His research as a PhD student focused on the development of predictive physiological-based pharmacokinetic models for monoclonal antibodies. He then continued on to a National Institute of Health National Research Service Award postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Pennsylvania Perelman School of Medicine, where he worked for 5 years with leading experts in vascular drug delivery. He is now an assistant professor at Temple University with a research program that focuses on the development of engineered drug delivery systems for the treatment of acute critical illness, with particular emphasis on optimization of pharmacokinetics and pharmacodynamics of antithrombotic agents. He also has substantial interest in the development of mechanistic models for nanoparticle-based therapeutics. Dr. Glassman was awarded a National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute K99 R00 Pathways to Independence Award, an award which helps young mentored scientists transition to independent scientists for his work on antithrombotics. He has published over 25 peer-reviewed manuscripts, presented on numerous abstracts, along with presentations at national and international scientific meetings. Welcome, Dr. Glassman. Dr. Elizabeth Lakota. Dr. Lakota received her doctorate of pharmacy in pharmacy practice and master's degree in pharmaceutical sciences from the UB School of Pharmacy in 2015. After graduation, she completed a one-year industry fellowship at the Institute for Clinical Pharmacodynamics, a consulting group fostering international translational science collaboration focused on providing safe and more effective drugs to patients through pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic system analysis. After her fellowship, she stayed at ICPD as an assistant director of pharmacometrics, where she performed pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic analysis for pharmaceutical companies developing antibiotics and contributed to interactions with regulatory agencies, including the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. In 2019, she moved into a clinical pharmacology role at Vertex Pharmaceuticals, a global biotech company that invests in scientific innovation to create transformative medicines for people with life-threatening diseases. She is currently a clinical pharmacology director and serves as the lead of the Vertex Northeastern Clinical Pharmacology PharmD Fellowship Program. Welcome, Dr. Lakota. And our last panelist is Dr. Caitlin Starr. Dr. Starr received her Doctor of Pharmacy degree from UB in 2016. She continued to a postgraduate trainings within the Veterans Affairs Health Administration in Western New York. Dr. Starr completed her PGY1 pharmacy practice residency and went on to specialize in mental health as a PGY2 psychiatric pharmacy resident. After her residencies, Dr. Starr continued working for the VA of Western New York, rotating through various positions in the inpatient pharmacy, outpatient pharmacy, and medication reconciliation program. In 2021, she was one of 4 initial pharmacists to be hired by the VA for the VSIN Vision 2 Clinical Contact Center Pharmacy Division, a new one-of-a-kind program that services the telecare needs of veterans across New York State and New Jersey, across the New York and New Jersey region. Even though Dr. Starr works remotely, this position has allowed her to connect with pharmacists and other medical professionals across the country. She was recently promoted to a facility program manager where she primarily sees patients via telehealth for comprehensive medication management, working along other CC providers as a clinical pharmacy provider. She also continues to train new employees and improve existing processes. Dr. Starr is a board-certified psychiatric pharmacist and has numerous peer-reviewed publications. She sits on the Vision to CCC Provider Pharmacist Committee, and we welcome Dr. Starr to our panel as well, and thank you. So that's the kind of quick overview on our panelists. Just wanted to be able to give you all background on where our panelists are in their career paths, and how we're going to begin our questions is discussing how their UB degrees better prepared them for their career paths and the things that they encountered in school that maybe were positional to those opportunities. So welcome, panelists. I'm going to start with some of our pre-prepared questions, and I don't have an order to them, so I'll just kind of start from the beginning. And you can either kind of raise your hand to indicate if you want to answer the question. I'll just kind of start with those who raise their hand first, and then we'll go forward with the rest of the panel. So to begin with, this is a kind of tough question, so it may take some thought. So why did you pick the University at Buffalo? Was it because of the reputation of our faculty, the reputation of our programs, or was it because of the chicken wings or other tempting gastronomical opportunities here in the Western New York area? So you can kind of raise your hand either through the Zoom feature or raise your hand there, and I'll go ahead with the first panelist who wants to answer that question for me.
I can go
Dr.
first.
Dr. Lakota.
Thanks. So I decided to go to pharmacy school in high school after exploring different medical careers. So all I knew was that I wanted to be a pharmacist. So I am originally from Syracuse, New York. So I really only looked at schools in state. So I applied to all the pharmacy schools in New York State. And one of the reasons I chose UB was because of the in-state tuition, which I know was discussed in the intro presentation. So that was actually why I went to UB. I went through the early assurance program as an undergrad, but looking back now, I was very naive to what a strong school it was. And I actually did the PharmD MS program that I think was mentioned. So I've been part of both departments, and I'm very confident that I would not be in the role I'm in if I had gone to another school. So I'm very happy I went to UB.
Dr. Rahal, go right ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, I think like Dr. Lakota said too, so I'm not even originally from the United States to begin with. So I was an international student. Knowing where to go and, making sure I'd be in a place where I feel comfortable and connected was very important to me. So I reached out to some alumni, just like some of you are doing, listening to this panel here. And a student from my college in Massachusetts told me, this is the school you want to go to. She said, as an international student, their challenges just because you're in a different country, the tuition is a little higher for international students. And she said, this place has been the most supportive, and the tuition is the lowest for international students compared to other institutions. So I applied. I was very fortunate to get a very generous scholarship at the time. I think it was through Walgreens, but it was offered at UB. So I was one of the recipients. I remember I got a picture with Dean Fielkorn. I still keep it in my records. On days when I feel down, I'm reminded of how thankful I should be for those opportunities. And also I heard good things about the state of New York in general. Someone told me it's a little bit like a melting pot. There's different people, different experiences, feels like home. I don't know about the feels like home part because it was cold in New York, and where I'm from is very warm. So other than the weather, everything else really did feel like home. I never felt alone. I never felt like I was a stranger. I never felt like I was different. And for me, those experiences came true for me at my 4 years in UB.
Thank you. Dr. Glassman?
Yeah, so I'm also not originally from New York. I'm from Maryland originally, but in high school, I kind of was like, I wanted to know how drugs were made. And to be honest, when I did all the college search, UB was one of the few schools that had an undergrad program that I thought would teach me how drugs were made in the pharmaceutical sciences program. So, and it didn't hurt that it was cheaper than going to the University of Maryland as an in-state student. So I went and I ended up staying for 9 years because I got involved in research as a junior and undergrad and really liked it. The graduate students were like, you should stay for grad school, you should stay, and decided to take them up on their advice, and been the best decision I could have made. I mean, I ended up, if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be at all where I am today.
Thank you. Dr. Starr?
Okay, so my pharmacy career, I would say, began for Wegmans Pharmacy. I was a technician, and unlike everyone else, I'm actually from Buffalo. I've lived here my whole life. I knew I wanted to stay in the area, so that kind of limited me to the pharmacy schools that I was looking at. So really, it was only UB, Dewville, and then St. John Fisher that I applied to. And so, working as a pharmacy technician, I was able to kind of see how some of the interns and, pharmacy students who came in, how they interacted, what their experiences were. And, it was just kind of obvious that UB had so many different opportunities, affiliation with, the medical school, as well as the research department. So, after applying to all three of them and, getting into all three, I chose UB just because of that, as well as the tuition is, fantastic compared to other schools. That's something huge. And I actually graduated in 2018. So I'm still pretty young, paying back my loan. So that's one piece of advice I would definitely say, look at the tuition of the schools and see where you could get your best bang for your buck. Because you don't want to be in debt for the rest of your life, but it is a fantastic program, and it's worth the investment, but you also just have to be smart about money as well.
Thank you. Second question, I'm going to pose this to Dr. Starr and Dr. Rahal. So what are your memories from your P1 years? And what were the courses that you liked? And what did it feel like being a first-year student here? So Dr. Starr, I'll just start with you since you were just finishing.
Yeah. So I came from originally Canisius College, which is another local Buffalo college. It's quite smaller than UB. So I remember when I first started, I was pretty nervous just because it was my first time actually going to a public school my whole life. So, I was nervous about like the big class sizes. Am I going to get lost? Are the teachers, not going to know who I am? And I was very surprised that I was able to talk with my professors after class. They remembered my name. They would, help me if I went to their office hours. So that was a pleasant surprise when I first came in. And then, I had a fantastic P1 year. I made a ton of friends. I think it's a great opportunity just because you don't know anyone, or even if you do, it's an opportunity to, meet people, and you're not really in a lot of situations like that in your life. So I still, my P1 year, I met 3 girlfriends. I'm still best friends with them. We're going to Savannah next month. So it's been great. And then the classes were wonderful. So like I said, you don't feel like you're just a number. And I think that was a huge thing for me, just coming, especially from, smaller schools in the past.
Thank you. I know that the faculty do try to go the extra mile and trying to reach out, and some of the first year classes are large. And thank you for commenting on the ability to be able to talk with them and interact with them, after class and things like that too, because that's an important aspect of it. Dr. Rahal.
Yeah, I definitely share similar sentiments to when I came, and I know this might not sound like a big deal, but I didn't have a vehicle. I didn't have a car, and I was worried in many ways because, I had read online, you need to have a car, because I wasn't sure what the commute was like. I was fortunate to get a place that was pretty close to the university. I think at the time they were transitioning from one campus to the other. It used to be, I think, is it Cook Hall, and they were transitioning to, the current building that the school was in. So, that was my only concern, but it worked out wonderful. I do remember there was a class we had in our first year. It was called, I believe, Pharmacy Calculations. I don't know if it's still offered. I think it was Professor Murali Ramanathan. I really enjoyed the class because I had never worked in a pharmacy, not even as a technician. So, I would be honest, on the first day they asked questions like, hey, who's worked in a pharmacy before? And I felt like everybody's hand went up, and then my hand, except me. And I felt like, just putting up half a hand and saying, I've never worked, but I'm willing to learn, and the point wasn't to embarrass anybody. He just wanted to know who had experience, who didn't, just to, and he said, hey, it didn't matter if you had experience or not. We're all going to learn this together. And I felt relief right there, because I wasn't sure if they were going to say, well, those of you that haven't worked in a pharmacy, sorry, that was not what happened. And so I saw a prescription for the first time, and I remember being so happy. And my friends were like, Rahel, you're really super excited about this whole process. And I said, because everything seems so new, they took time, went over it. Definitely, I did have some challenges here and there, but nothing the professors can address or anything like that. And I remember we also had, I don't know what they used to call them, like maybe TAs or something. They would like assist the professors, and they would help us if we had, we needed like extra tutoring, or needed to go through, certain things we didn't understand. So it was kind of nice to have not like a peer, but somebody like an upper class man you could talk to and all of that. So those helped me a lot. I also made friends, which was something that I was very nervous about, because, I didn't know, my accent is different, everything is so different. I felt like, maybe do I have to talk like them so I could make friends? That was not the case. In fact, I made too many friends, such that when I graduated, I get wedding wedding invitations every month and baby showers and whatnot. So I, if anything, I probably make the most friends in pharmacy school, which is surprising because they say you make the most friends in college or high school. It was the opposite for me, and I still keep in touch with them. So I really love that first year experience.
Sounds like you made great connections.
Yes.
Thank you. Second question, we're going to transition a little bit to our pharmaceutical sciences program. So I'm going to ask Dr. Lakota and Dr. Glassman, your memories from your educational past. And I know they're a little bit different as far as your pathways into the pharmaceutical sciences programs, but can you talk about those a little bit? And what did you feel like being part of an actually stellar international renowned research department? And were there particular faculty members you wanted to work with and why? And Dr. Glassman, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, so I guess I can talk about both the undergraduate and the graduate programs. So, the undergrad program was fantastic. At the time, Dr. Boje was running it with a lot of support from Dr. Balu-Ayer. And, there was only a small number of us, about 15 in the year, I think. And so it was very easy to get close with your classmates. But, we also had, really good instruction professors who, in hindsight, probably, they had a lot of research going on, taking the time to teach this small class of undergraduates, a really well-rounded education, which, looking back, I really do appreciate that. But one of the things that I think was most important about the program is you were required to do research. And so I had, read all the faculty bios and had a lot of interest in what Dr. Balthazar did. And I hadn't met him. He doesn't teach in the undergraduate program. So I emailed him and he let me come join his lab. He took the time to sit and teach me what turned out to be graduate PK as an undergrad so that I could do the work I needed to do in his lab, and then let me stay with him for the PhD, which was amazing. And, and I'm sure Liz will say similar things, sitting in PhD or master's classwork with the professors who literally wrote the papers that are the foundation for the material you're learning. You can't beat that education. And, when you leave Buffalo and you go present at a conference or something, you realize just how well known the university is. I was a third year PhD student. I was presenting at a conference and people were coming up and talking to me because they saw University of Buffalo School of Pharmacy on the poster. They didn't know who I was. They saw where I was from, and really helped to build a network of people that you never know when you're going to run into somebody you met at a conference years ago who just came and talked to you because you went to UB. So that was incredibly valuable.
Thank you. And I wanted to ask another question as well, and I'll ask Dr. Lakota this, a little bit about what it's like to work within the lab environment here, as far as, especially on your PhD, that's quite a significant amount of time that you're spending in the lab. So a little bit maybe of insight into what that is like from a research perspective, being in a lab environment.
Yeah.
So you go ahead. Kat.
Yeah. I mean, I spent a lot of my time at a computer, to be honest, but it's almost like having a part-time job for some of it. But it's with very flexible hours. You get to go in the lab and you have to think about the problems that your advisors set before you, the best way to address them. And it's really, it's a problem solving exercise. You're able to sit, think, and work with some really, really cool techniques, some really cool instruments to answer questions that nobody's answered before, which is what I think was the best part about doing research.
Thank you. Dr. Lakota.
I'll comment on that a little bit. I didn't do a PhD, so I didn't spend as much time in a lab as Dr. Glassman. But I really enjoyed that time. You see a lot of people on the pharmaceutical sciences floors on the weekends and at night, just hanging out. Like Dr. Glassman said, just thinking about things, bouncing ideas off of one another. All of the professors I found incredibly approachable. I would have happily worked in any of their labs, and I walked up to many of the pharmaceutical sciences professors with questions from class, or I had a lot of actually career questions for them. I contemplated staying for my PhD actually for a number of years, and I talked to, I think, almost every professor in the pharmaceutical sciences program, and they all helped guide me to my ultimate decision. But I I had a great time. I was actually only officially in the department 1 year. So I did 2 years in the PharmD program. I did 1 year in the master's program, and I went back to the PharmD program for 2 years. And during my last 2 years, I did take some more electives in the pharmaceutical sciences program. But I am so happy I spent just 1 extra year to get a second degree from the pharmaceutical sciences department. Pat mentioned the reputation of the pharmaceutical sciences program throughout the scientific community. And I knew that was true going through the program, but you really find out when you leave how true that is. You go to conferences, you go to interview for jobs, and you just get such a positive reaction the minute somebody hears you graduated from SUNY Buffalo School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences.
Thanks. I appreciate both of your comments on that. And I know even when we're going to meetings, myself and Dr. Rosenberg, faculty and staff across the country, it resonates when you say where you're from, and the conversations that are developed are extraordinary and sometimes unexpected, but it really is the cachet of being, saying that you're from the University of Buffalo, and those interactions that happen that are completely unexpected, and often sometimes the best interactions that you have in the course of those kind of scholarly pursuits and programs and presentations that you're working on. So thank you. Next question, kind of for the whole group. So trying to get some information about how did you engage in professional networking as a student? Was it through student organizations, professional meetings, or other opportunities? And I'll let Dr. Starr start with that as far as from an engagement from a student perspective.
Yeah, so I joined a bunch of different organizations. I remember P1 year, they had a showcase of everything. So, you could go around and find out more about each organization. So I was in APHA, what else was I in? Winship, NISHIP.
And what are those organizations? Like, kind of what do they
There's lots of acronyms. So once you come to pharmacy school, you'll realize there's a bunch of acronyms. So in APHA, they have the monthly meetings or whatever. So that was a great opportunity to kind of hang out with other students. And they also had like leadership opportunities within each of the organizations. So there I was the co-chair of Operation Immunization, where we did a lot of outreach, teaching in the community about different vaccines, holding flu shot clinics, things like that. So that was just a great way to, help practice interacting with the public as, pharmacists, depending on which career path you go. I found that doing things like that, I still have to do, explaining immunizations, explaining different health topics. And then in, what was it, Winship. So that was the health systems organization. So that was more for inpatient pharmacies and pharmacists. So with that, I was able to go to meetings with the pharmacists in the local area who were also on this board. And that was a great opportunity just because I was, kind of shy and, nervous to network with other people, especially the top leaders within the pharmacy field. But I was able to kind of break out of my shell and meet some of these important, influential people. And, that helped me later on set up shadowing opportunities with them. And, the more people the better off you are. I feel like my internships, my current job, my old job, it all happened because I kind of knew someone, just to have that in. And then in addition to those, I did go to the ASHP meetings. So that is the years I went, they were in Las Vegas and Orlando. And I did have research that I presented at those meetings as well. And so, it was a great opportunity. And, kind of like some of the other people said, people see the name UB and they want to come up and talk to you because they've heard of the school. They know how prestigious it is. So I think I answered your full question. Was there anything else?
No, you did. Yeah, we talked about student organizations, professional meetings. So it's just how you were able to, set up engagement network. So thank you. That did help answer.
Yeah. And there's, even if you're not, if you don't join, any organizations, UB did hold networking events. They have free food. So I always went to all of those and, talked to whoever I could. And I feel like all the pharmacists who go there are, they want to be there because they want to network with the students and get to know the students. So that was another thing I think that UB did very well.
The P2 class and P1 class are major participants in our networking events that we host either on campus or at local venues throughout the area. So I appreciate the comments on that as well. And I wanted to let the students on the Zoom call know, I forgot to mention before, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. I will make sure that we get to your questions either during the course of the conversation we're having now or towards the end of the program. And if the question is for a certain panelist, please indicate that in the chat as well. I'll make sure I direct that to the correct person as we get towards the end of the program. So thank you very much, Dr. Starr. And I will ask Dr. Raheel as the same question as well. So questions about networking, student organizations, professional development?
Yeah, in my first year, I remember, one of those workshops that, you could attend, kind of like what Dr. Caitlin was talking about. So I remember signing up for a bunch, which is typically the case, and then you kind of start narrowing down. And so I was part of PANI, which was, I think, the Western New York Pharmacy Student Association, the one that's for students. And I found it helpful because, whether or not you're going to practice in the state of New York, you're spending at least at the bare minimum 4 years of your pharmacy program in the state of New York, right? So, you want to get to know, people around, you want to connect. And I remember they used to have like dinners and continuing education programs, which were helpful. So it's not like you're just going out to eat. Some of the programs you get credit for. So that was also helpful, at least for me, because it's, a little bit of academic, a little bit of networking, and some fun as well, and we like free food, right? Some of the events were free, some were not, but the ones that are not free were, sometimes maybe $10, $15 at the time. This was about, 8 years ago. I was also part of CFPR or CPFR. It was a Christian Pharmacist Fellowship group, and they did a lot of mission related work. They partnered with something called the CDMA. I think it was the Dental and Medical School. And on some summers, they'll have a bunch of pharmacists, a bunch of pharmacy students, a bunch of medical students, and a bunch of dental students go out and offer, services to people in, marginalized communities. So sort of like giving back to the community, just kind of being, blessing to people out there. So that was also very beautiful. You didn't necessarily have to go on the international trips. You could do local events. I remember we went to different, like organizations, churches, to do poison prevention presentations, like talking to the kids at the church, be careful of this, when you're at home, don't do this, don't that, and how to respond to if you had, you were poisoned or something like that. So that was an impactful thing as well. And then I remember in my last year, because I was doing research with Professor Brian Suji, I had an opportunity to go present some of my work in San Francisco. And just like Dr. Glassman was saying, we're students, nobody knows us, but when you go there and they see, the logo, they see who you're doing the research with, because those UB faculty are pretty well known, in the research industry. I believe at the time, Professor Suji, and maybe still, was the only pharmacy professor, if I'm correct, that had an R01 grant of several millions of dollars. I think it had never been recorded in the history for any professor in the pharmacy practice. So that was a big deal, and still is, for the university and several other faculties. I'm sure if you this would be public information you can pull up.
Dr. Suji has been able to maintain those R01 training grants and keep building upon them, which is still the case.
Yes, absolutely. And thanks to him and, the team, I got my first publication ever as a second author in the ACCP Clinical Journal in November 2017. And that was even after I'd graduated. I graduated in 2016. So even after I left the school, I was still able to be doing some work with the school in 2017. We still published. So it's not just get your degree, goodbye, see you later. You're still connected with these people. And I think that's meaningful because it's not just come through, study and just walk away, but even while you're gone, they're still connecting with you. So I think the engagement piece is a big thing for UB, and I'm thankful for that.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments on the community engagement as well as the research collaboration too, because those are both very strong networking opportunities that we have here amongst the faculty and amongst the student groups and the student leaders that run those organizations too. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Becky, can we
Yeah.
pivot and take a quick question in the chat? I can read it to you if you can't see it.
You bet.
The question is for all the panelists, I guess, what is or was the workload like as a student in the pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences programs? So maybe we can jump back to Liz, since you have the experience of being in both programs. I know a number of others do.
Yeah. I graduated before everyone else here, so maybe something has changed, but I say, there's a fair workload. There's a lot of classes, a lot of people are involved in things outside of just classwork. Caitlin and Raheel mentioned, all the professional organizations they were involved in, and a lot of people have internships, or if you're in the pharmaceutical sciences program, you are doing research. So, there's a lot to juggle outside of just classwork. So, I think it's moderate. I think you have to come in assuming you're going to be, studying a lot, doing assignments, doing rotations if you're in the pharmaceutical sciences, the pharmacy practice side, or, doing lab work on the weekends if you're in the pharmaceutical sciences side. That's part of, I think, being at a stronger school is that, there are expectations and they're not just going to let anybody graduate. So, it is a moderate workload, but I think it's manageable, and it's manageable because people can juggle other things while also juggling the workload for classes.
Thank you. Dr. Glassman, your comments too, since you were on the kind of the BS side of the house and then on the PharmD or on the PhD side of the house.
Yeah, so I mean, the BS program in particular, I felt like it was what you would expect out of, any life sciences major. You're gonna have time periods where you're studying a lot, taking classes like physiology and pharmacology, but there's times when the workload is lighter. It's, it really is a matter of how you manage your time. I, as an undergrad, had plenty of time to participate in club sports at the university, which took me away for several weekends during the year. So I didn't find that it was overwhelming. As a graduate student, it's the expectations, as you might expect, are a bit higher. There would be times when half of the advanced pharmacokinetics class was in the computer lab until midnight because we all needed to figure out how to do the homework. But that was also a great opportunity to, build camaraderie with your classmates. We were all there working together, struggling through the same problem. And then as you get more senior in the program and move away from coursework, it's really how you choose to balance your time. If you spend more time in the lab, maybe you'll get done a little faster, maybe you'll get that result a little faster, but you could also work it closer to a 9 to 5 if you want to take a little bit longer. And it's really what you make of it as a PhD student.
Thank you. And for Dr. Raheel and for Dr. Starr too, maybe thinking about workload and how, like, tips for making it better, maybe working with other students, things that you found to be successful that were kind of like tips or cheat sheets, kind of, so to speak, that might be helpful. So I'll let Dr. Raheel start and then Dr. Starr.
Yeah, I found it helpful, working in a group. Of course, at the end of the day, you still have to do your work. You have to produce your individual, work and outcome. But there's so many opportunities to talk about things in a group. And so sometimes after class, we'll make time. We'll have like a little chat group thing, and we'll get together maybe in one of the halls or I believe the classrooms were always called accessible even after lectures were over. So you could go to the building, I believe up to a certain time, maybe midnight or so. And, the place was safe, there was security, so y'all could get together and learn. And that was a big help for me. Also just, I always say this, but Dr. Rosenberg, your door was always open, and I'm not sure why it was always open, but I remember I'd be walking on the second floor. Sometimes when I'm stressed, I'll just be taking a stroll, and you would always see me and say hi. And I'm like, why is her door always open? And just mentally, because sometimes, when you're stressed, you feel like you're by yourself, you feel like nobody understands you and you're alone, but just understanding that the communities that support you, and sometimes some professors will be there till late, and just if you have a problem, just go in there, talk to someone, and sometimes, I know you're not in the teaching department per se, but I remember you would ask me, are you okay? And I'll say, hey, I needed this. And you would tell me, have you thought of, emailing this professor or, going to this place? So allowing yourself to know that all these resources are there for you. If it's not your friends, it's the professors. And I noticed the professors were fast with responding to emails. I mean, you could send a professor an email at 6 o'clock and get a response sometimes within an hour. And so, I didn't feel like you had to wait, 24 hours or 48 hours just to get a response. So using all the resources, I think, is very, very important, not feeling like you're by yourself, because I will be honest, I think everybody was stressed sometimes, but if you don't open up and you don't ask for help and you don't connect, you're going to make yourself feel like you're by yourself. But that's not really true, because everybody is still feeling it, but we'll all get through it.
Thank you very much. Dr. Starr.
Yeah, so I thought the coursework was definitely challenging, but manageable. I personally thought P1 year was the hardest for me. I think just because it was a lot more foundational work, whereas P2, P3 year, we got more into the therapeutics and, the actual pharmacy and drugs and treating people. So I think the fact that, if you're interested in pharmacy and find it, exciting and interesting, it definitely helps with studying and learning it, because, it's something that you're going to need for your career. And I found things, that I wasn't as interested in. I didn't do as well in those classes. So, definitely having a desire to go to pharmacy school, to be a pharmacist, or, get your PhD helps. And I would say having a strong group of, friends or other students that you could lean on was helpful. I know we would make these, study guides. So one person would tackle one chapter, another person would do another, and we would share them all and, study in the library before tests together, quiz each other, bounce ideas off each other. So, everyone going through the same thing together, you really do become close with those people, and, they're a great resource to lean on.
Hey, Becky.
Yeah.
I just 2 other quick questions, because I know we're actually getting closer to
close.
6
Yep.
o'clock, and want to be sensitive to the panelists' life outside of being panelists. 2 quick questions. I guess the first question was maybe if any of you remember transitioning from high school to college, what maybe were there, and you can probably see the question if you can see the chat, but were there things about that you did in high school to prepare to get admitted to UB or to your undergraduate institution, and then maybe make the transition to pharmacy school? And then I have a follow-up question after that, but I'll let you, if anybody wants to just sort of comment, that would be great. It's a ways back.
Yeah, I would say, if you're at least interested in the pharmacist side, one thing that really helped me was being a technician. So if you're, able to find a job somewhere, I know I think I was in 12th grade when I started at Wegmans, but that was super helpful, just having that background. And then even if you can't get a job, like shadowing other pharmacists, so, in a hospital or CVS, Walgreens, whatever, just, being able to say that you have seen the job and you know what it entails and you're still interested, I feel like is huge, for going in.
And I guess a quick follow-up question would be, there was wondering, what the first year curriculum looks like. And, we do have the curriculum chart up there, but the question from Hannah is really more about what was the content of the classes. You could just high level explain a couple of the classes that you took in your first year for PharmD.
I remember in the first year, at least during my time, I remember 2 classes specifically, the pharmacy calc with Professor Morali, where it was just basic pharmacy calculation, just basic stuff, how to interpret prescriptions, pharmacy language, SIGs, things like that. We'll have like little quizzes. I found it fun. And then there was also, I believe, pathophysiology, just learning about the body and, just organ systems. And then there were 2 other ones, I forget what they were, but I know in the second and third year, that's when we went more into therapeutics and things that were a little more heavy. So, and of course, there was the IPP, which was like, just a couple hours, non-didactic work, sort of, doing some sort of work outside the classroom, and they would assign you like a place to go do those hours. And so for me, the first year was manageable. I felt like the second year, when the big topics came in, I was a little overwhelmed until, I kind of settled again. But the first year for me was just basic stuff. And for someone that had never worked in a pharmacy, never seen a prescription, never ever had any pharmacy experience at all, except for some of the work I did previously, which were not necessarily pharmacy, but different things, because initially I was going to go to medical school. So I didn't have much pharmacy experience, but those pharmacy calc classes with Professor Morali were very helpful. That biology base with the pathophysiology class were also very helpful. And then the IPP introduction to sort of give you a taste of what to expect was also very helpful. I forget the other 2 classes, but those were the 2 main ones I remember.
Thank you. From Dr. Lakota, Dr. Glassman, anything kind of preparatory on the research side of things to find out if it's really of interest? And I know we're talking about, high school or, early college, but maybe a way to think about that or delve into it to see if you think it's going to be interesting.
I guess I can talk a little bit about it. So, like I said, we had to do it as part of the pharmaceutical sciences program, but I found that, just, looking at what the professor's type of research is, and all the professors in the pharmaceutical sciences department were incredibly responsive to emails from undergrads. They didn't always wouldn't necessarily have space in the lab at the time, but they'd always respond, they'd always meet with you. So just emailing a professor, asking if there's opportunities. I had friends at Buffalo who, not in pharmacy, but in other departments, started doing research freshman year, sophomore year. They just got in the lab, started to learn how to do things, and just reach out to professors. They'll respond whether or not they have space, and they'll always be encouraging. So you have to put yourself out there to do it.
Thank you very much.
And I'll just comment, piggyback on what others have said, just get as much life experience as possible, even if it's not research, even if it's not a pharmacy, but you can get a job in a hospital doing something on the weekends. Great. You'll find out what different personality types are like in different roles. You'll quickly find out if you like that environment or you don't like that environment.
And thanks. That's good experience too. And then once you're in pharmacy school too, your experiential education can help further define that too, as far as, and experiential education is when you're not in our building taking seated classes, you're out in the community, experiencing what it is like to be a pharmacist in a community pharmacy or in a hospital pharmacy or in a long-term care facility or other opportunities. During your earlier years in the program, you have a few hours where you're experiencing things outside to test them, to see if you like clinical work, if you like research more, if you like counseling, if perhaps you like working in a managed care facility. It depends on where your interest will lead you. And there's plenty of opportunity for that experience in the first early years, as well as in your 4th year of school, where you are outside of the pharmacy building, not here for seated courses, and out in the community doing work in different pharmacy settings. So I appreciate the comments there, building upon experiential learning. So And I know that we're getting very close to 6 o'clock as far as our time for panelists. So Jen, if okay with you, I'm going to thank our panelists profusely for taking the time this evening to talk with our students, take their questions and reflect upon your experiences as a student, and again, how that prepared you for the career success that you're having currently. I think that we're going to stay on Zoom, John, if I'm correct, for student questions, but if the panelists need to sign off, please feel free to do so. If you want to stick around, we'd love to have you on a little bit longer, but completely respect your time and opportunities this evening. So if we can all kind of give a virtual round of applause to our panelists, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and insights. And like I said, if you need to sign off, please do so. And again, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks to all of you. I
Thank
will
you.
stay on for questions.
Yeah.
If you have any other questions that aren't in the chat, feel free to throw them up or unmute or call them out. Thanks again, Becky. And thanks.
You're very
for
welcome.
Alice. Thank you. Thanks. I will hang. Oh, here's someone. Any other questions? Hi, Deanna. Hi, Edison. Nice to see you. Nice to see everybody, but also nice to see you guys too.